Have you ever heard of the word climate justice? Climate justice is a concept that addresses the just and equal distribution of the burdens of climate change and its mitigation. This concept is important because climate change affects everyone in the world, but ability to respond is bound to depend on financial circumstances. The people who emit the least amount of greenhouse gases are exposed to and harmed by the climate change. Countries that are most responsible for climate changes are relatively less affected and damaged, but the people in countries rarely responsible for climate changes are deprived of basic freedom and human rights. The richest 50% of the world accounts for 86% of greenhouse gas emission, but other half of the poor accounts only for 14%. The World Bank has announced that the average carbon emissions per capita in the UK are 65% higher than those in Malawi. People in the United States, Canada, and Australia produce 150 times more than that. The World Bank explains that if everyone is to be fairly responsible for the damage caused by the climate change, the United States and the European Union must bear at least 50%, China 10%, and India 0.5%. As an example of climate inequality, there is a heat wave. Studies have shown that street temperature in poor areas in the United States was 3 to 10 degrees higher than others. And also forest fires caused by the heat wave have destroyed people's livelihoods and threatened their lives. In addition, a considerable number of people in underdeveloped countries engage in agriculture, forestry, and fishing, which are vulnerable to climate change. Climate change influences these people a lot in various forms such as floods, unprecedented typhoons, and severe droughts. There are 30 million climate refugees, and they are in vicious cycle of poverty and threatened with survival. I'll show you several examples of victims of climate injustice. Firstly, the world's sixth poorest country, Mozambique, has experienced 2 unprecedented typhoons. Hundreds of people were killed and more than millions were left in need of humanitarian support. It forced people to pay $3.2 billion in damage. Nextly, a drought has led to the complete disappearance of food sources in Madagascar, leaving people to eat only locusts and cactus leaves. The last image is Tuvalu, a disappearing island. Due to rising sea levels, the country is becoming submerged and people are losing their homes. Since the rising ocean contaminated underwater ground supplies, Tuvalu is now totally reliant on rainwater and droughts are occurring with alarming frequency. There's not enough rain to keep even simple gardens alive. And in these countries, climate-related illnesses, including influenza, fungal disease, conjunctivitis, and fever, have increased with the changing weather. What these countries have in common is that they never have made large contribution to global emissions. Kairos de la Cruz, Deputy Prime Minister of the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities, said developing countries are reaching the limits of dealing with natural disasters themselves. He also expressed concerns about the serious damage of climate change in underdeveloped countries where it is relatively difficult to respond to climate change. A recent study shows that children born in poor countries are expected to experience abnormal weather as 3 times as their grandparents' generation, while children born in rich countries experience twice. To relieve climate injustice, we should realize the reality of climate injustice and care about people in poor areas who are deeply affected. Developed countries must support the victims of climate change so that they can overcome its damage. Furthermore, we have to keep in mind that we can also be the victims of climate injustice whenever. As climate change is speeding up, the victims of it are becoming wider. So, who would be the next victim of the climate injustice? The next can be your country, your family, and you.